Okay, here we are, Matthew Russell Lee, Inner City Press, here at the Southern District of New York Courthouse. We're on our way, rather quickly, toward the Rudy Giuliani civil case, the collection case, today, the trial. There have been a lot of rulings, and most of them have gone against Giuliani, including his tax information will come in, including Monsignor Placa can't testify. But Rudy himself is slated to testify for both sides. And it may all be done in one day, with the closing arguments already set for January 21st. The two issues, the homestead. Will he lose his condominium in Florida if Judge Lyman finds that it's not, in fact, a Florida homestead, despite a finding by Florida that it is, Florida's tax authorities? And also the rings. Did Rudy effectively give them to his son, or are they subject to the collection action? So we're going to be covering that case. Yesterday we covered it. It took a long time. The bond bail hearing, let's say, call it, of Alon, Oren, and Tal Alexander, the real estate trio. Their lawyers came up from Florida, including Howard Srebnick, who once represented Michael Avenatti, including a guy called Klug, who dropped a... It was incredible. It was incredible. You have to read that feed to believe it. It seemed foregone from the beginning, and it did in fact happen. The Alexanders will be detained pending trial. Danger to the community. Horrendous acts described by the government. AUSA Andrew Jones. And so you can read that there. In the Combs case, which is sort of related in the sense of detention and the similar type of allegations, Judge Subramanian did agree to seal a filing that was made by Mark Agnifilo of the Combs team. But we had already written about it and put it up, so you can find it. That's sort of the horse is out of the barn. I'm not really sure what sealing after the fact accomplishes, but you can find it. Just to close out on a kind of a very sad story, there was a woman named Brenda Laverty. She was extradited in a sort of a relatively humdrum securities fraud boiler room case, they called it, from Cyprus. She was in a cancer ward. She was already extremely sick with cancer, but since she'd been indicted, they made a point of flying her to the U.S. and putting her in the MDC. I saw her in the mag court, and she was bone thin, and I started writing about the case because it didn't make any sense to me. And then the other women inmates of the MDC, including many of whom we reported on, Irina Dilpinska, Josephina Marine, various ones, they all wrote a letter saying, you have to do something, she's dying. Well, yesterday she was brought to court, finally made well enough to come to court, to plead guilty, be sentenced, and be taken immediately by ICE to the airport and flown to Ireland for treatment, I'm hoping. So I wish her well, but to me, the question is not resolved of why they brought her here. Finally, we're approaching the court now, and you can see behind me, you can see for some photographers set up for Rudy later in the day after the trial. The United Nations, they still haven't answered on why and how and the extent of their congestion pricing, but they also haven't. They're now claiming credit, ironically, for the announced Gaza ceasefire when they had absolutely nothing to do with it. When they threw gasoline on the fire, propagandized, raised money. It's an absolute outrage, and it's time to be turning around the UN's regime of censorship and corruption. To be continued.